thank you so much. Thank you so much, Milena, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And I would say Plotville was a real surprise. It was beautiful yesterday to have a walk, and it was a real discovery. So here are my slides. The slides are available on Zenodo. They are reusable because you see the Creative Commons license. And the same is true for the background photos. As you see, I like taking photos. And the title is, What If We Had Not Open Science? So the value and potential of openness. So this is my personal take about open science. I've been doing this job for, I would say, the past 20 years. So I can tell you I have some experience on the messages and the issues and whatever, but this is my very personal take, as in August I turned 60. And they told me that after 60, you can tell whatever you want. So no longer politically correct, no longer to be nice at every cost. So this is my 60 presentation. So let's start, if it starts. Yes, with some starting points. So some definition, what is open science for me? The bridge between the science we do and the society we serve. And in the slides, this is a particular case because it was said last week at the Geneva conference, so the slides are not yet online, but usually you have the source, okay? So the bridge between the science we do and the society we serve. Open science depends on open minds. That's the real issue. If it's not open, it's not even science. And John Tennant, I think you know him, he used to be one of the most passionate advocates. My first talk of the year message is going to be that the opposite of open science is not closed, it's bad science. Because if you don't have data, if you can't reproduce, if you don't have the methodology, it's not science, okay? And John also used to say open science is just science done right. So another starting point, Merce Croza speaking, she's the president of Codata, and she's one of my, role model. Open science is being scientific, which is being reproducible, but in the 21st century. If you think what we get when we waste, because this is the verb I use oppositely, when we waste $10 billion worldwide in subscriptions, we get a PDF online in 2025. So being scientific and being open means being scientific, but in the 21st century. Come on, it's not a PDF online. So it means that we have to have data, protocols, methodology, software online available for everyone. And this is the best definition, in my opinion. I got it from Petra. Petra used to be a PhD student at the University of Verona back in 2020. And she was replying to my initial question at the beginning of my training. My question to researcher is, why do you do research? Why did you choose in the first place to do research? Because I'm sure that if you are earnest with yourself, the answer is, or better, is not to publish in Nature. But this is what it became. Publishing, 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 and nothing else. So the reply by Petra, it was really helpful to have in mind there is an alternative way, open science, that gives us the chance of being treated with dignity. I find it moving, dignity. Because I was so happy, and I know that Milena is a real, let's say, leader, empowering her young researchers. But sometimes the lab is toxic. So the young researcher is just a slave, okay? So this point of being treated with dignity is very important, and to really focus on the essence of our work, which is doing research in a proper way, and not publishing, 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 publishing. And then a reflection on open science, because if you think about open science like as dissemination, If you think of it, dissemination is just at the end of the process. So we do something in academia and then we kindly disseminate with society, which is not the right take on open science. We should think on a different way of creating knowledge. So it should be at the beginning of the process and not just at the end. And there is an important word, co-creation, which now, if you apply for any Horizon Europe process, is a plus. So I will structure my presentation on some questions. The first one is open science. Are we there? Spoiler, no. Some numbers. 72, do you know what is 72? Years. 72 years. And in Germany has been calculated 150 years to transition from the current subscription-based journal system to open access through this evil, because I told you I'm 60, evil transformative agreements. They seem to be the solution back in 2018. Let me tell you, they are not the solution if it will take 72 up to 150 years to transform the system, okay? There is a professor in Italy whose name is Maria Chiara Pievatolo, and she calls them conservative agreements because they are not transforming anything. $12,290, do you know what it is? The amount of money you have to pay to publish one article in Nature, open access. This is the hybrid model, which again is the evil, because the journal remains by subscription. If you pay 12,000, your article will be open access, okay? This is not open access. Let me tell you. This is the commercial exploitation of the idea of open access by traditional publishers. Because open access was born to be open to everyone. Who can afford to pay 12,000? But why they can ask for 12,000? Because now we have this system based on prestige. So Nature is the most prestigious journal. They can ask you 12,000 to publish open access in Nature, which of course is not open access. And then we have just 18% of researchers practicing FAIR principles. I think you are familiar with the FAIR principles: findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And just 20% of researchers sharing code and software. So we are not there. Even though, and again, this was presented last week in Geneva at the Open Science Fair, there is even economic evidence of the benefits of open access and open science. This is a cost analysis benefit carried on the Portuguese National Repository. Benefit from 373 million to 500 million per year in using open science and in adopting open science. And this is a very serious and sound study. Considering everything, you see the methodology there. So why is it so difficult? Even if we have also economic benefit, why is it so difficult? First of all, because we must be really global and equitable. And it's not that easy. Because, you know, we are reasoning about open science, but we are in the global north. And in Geneva, there was this beautiful young lady from South Africa, and she was the one always raising her hand and saying, no, sorry, for us it doesn't work. Because it's a solution we came up in the global north. You know, sometimes in South Africa, they don't even have the internet connection. So what are we talking about, you know? So we must be really global and equitable. And you know, the quote comes from the UNESCO outlook, because you know that the UNESCO has a strong recommendation on open science voted back in 2021. Then another warning, you know, the acronym is findable, accessible, okay? And again, Geeta Niali, she's a biologist from India. Are we doing accessibility or simply availability? Because you see the library is available, but for the man in the wheelchair, it's not accessible. So maybe our data are available but not accessible. That's another food for thought. And this is Leslie Chan speaking, but also Barend Mons speaking. Barend is the father of fair data. Beware of open washing. If you look at the website, Springer Nature website, they say they are doing open science. So it's not just putting open before everything that we are safe. Like we have the greenwashing with the climate change and whatever. So Barend is proposing a new terminology, which is fair and equitable science. And we should say fair and equitable research, because sometimes when you say science, humanities feel not at ease because they think that science is just for STMs. And look at the links. This is the map of the world according to citations in commercial journals. You see, Global North, hypertrophic. Latin America, Africa, Australia almost disappeared. Look at the richness of connections in diamond open access journals. So we are almost there, but this is to compare the open model with the closed one. You see, the closed is absolutely not inclusive, not global, not equitable. We have some kind of new journals, that so-called Diamond Open Access Journal. Look at the richness. This is really global. Another reason why it's so difficult, because it's a cultural change. Do you remember one of the first definition? Open science depends on open minds. So it's a cultural change. That's why it's difficult. We should pass from this situation, we are in a complete closed, let's say, mindset, closed way of doing research, up. But it's a process. And that's why it's so difficult, because it's a culture. We need to shift, okay, from this idea of publishing to knowledge sharing and knowledge co-creating. So at the beginning of the process, and everything should be open. And this is to be meditated, and I showed this slide to my 3 candidate rectors, because in 2 days we will have the first women rector at the University of Turin. When they were candidates, we launched our open science community, which is very important to have in every university. It's a community made of you, made of researchers, helping each other to do open science. And I showed the results at the end of my PhD course. I asked my PhDs, what's the obstacles? Why is it so difficult to do open science? And you see the answers. My principal investigator, all researchers, the chief of the lab. So it's really a matter of changing a research culture. Second question, how do we monitor? How do we know if we have open science? And this is very important, not with traditional metrics. We have to stick to the values. This was an important message. Again, this comes from the, again, UNESCO Outlook. And in Geneva, Anna Persic, last week from UNESCO, she told us we need to stick to the values. So what we should measure is, do we have more collective benefit? Do we have more equity? And if you think to my numbers, $12,000 for one article is not equitable, okay? So the answer is no. Do we have more diversity? Do we have more inclusiveness? This is what we should reason on. Not, I know, not the number, because, you know, sometimes my colleagues in the library, they measure open science by the increased number of open access articles. That's not the way. Because if the article was paid $12,000, it's not open access. It's true, we have one more article, open access, but we didn't stick to the values because it's not equitable, okay? So we should measure if we change anything for the better, sticking to the values. And by the way, these are the values open science should strive for. You see, equality, responsibility, respect, accountability, collaboration, and thank you. You have approved this morning. This was collective intelligence, you see? So collaboration, participation, inclusion, flexibility, sustainability. But on sustainability, let me spend another of my 60 words. Why are we always talking about sustainability only for open access and open science? So the 10 billion we waste, because we are wasting 10 billion worldwide in subscriptions. They are taken for granted. They are not questionable. So why are we talking about sustainability only for open access and open science and not for this waste of public money? Because it's not just money, it's public money wasted in subscription. Third question, is it just theory? So open science, is it just theory? No, we mentioned COVID. I particularly like Milena's presentation because it was about the words, you know. During COVID, it was clear, open data save lives, full stop. So it's not just about theory. And you don't have to think about only data in medicine. Think, again, about COVID. Think about all the societal challenges. Think about the need we have to empower people. And this is culture. This is the humanities, it's not medicine, okay? But, and this is a bit technical, but in order to be open, your data must be managed, fair by design, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, and only in the end, open. Because if your data are not fair, if in the R part, in the reusable part, you don't have all the documentation, all the licenses and whatever, your data can be misused. So let me be clear, open data is not an Excel spreadsheet online, because your data must be structured, described with the right metadata, with the right methodology and whatever. So we need to have managed data, fair data, and then open data by law. This is a message that in Italy is not clear. We have a European directive. I've put the link to the Bulgarian version of the directive. The data must be as open as possible by law, okay? But the principle is as open as possible. Also in the humanities, you have a specific report on fair data in the humanities, so don't think that the humanities are excluded. What do we mean by fair? We mean metadata, we mean standards, we mean protocols, we mean ontologies, so technically we are there. We have all the tools you see here. The problem is the cultural change. Also because, is it an effort? Yes, it is. It's time consuming. You need this precious new profession, which is the data steward. But you have to do it. If not, it's just a selfie. Is there anything more stupid and useless than a selfie? But everyone is taking selfie. This is a concept coming from Indonesia. Dasapta Erwin Irawan, he is a geologist. After the earthquake in Indonesia, what they get from the government was this picture. But it's a picture. If you click on 5.6, you are supposed to see the data about the earthquake. And he said, if you click, you don't get anything. So actually, these are not data. These are selfie of data, which is useless. So basically, you make your data findable, accessible, interoperable in order to be reusable. If not, it's just selfie of data. So this is the very important message, not only for humans. We have artificial intelligence. Everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. What are we feeding these machines? Because, you know, people seriously dealing with artificial intelligence have a mantra, which is rubbish in, rubbish out. So if you don't feed quality, structured, fair data, you will get rubbish, okay, in the end. And if you have 15 minutes in your life, please watch this TED Talk. You have the link there. She's Shalini Kurapati talking. She's an engineer dealing with artificial intelligence, and she will give a wonderful talk about the potential and the risks of artificial intelligence. That's really worth watching. Also because we have the EOSC. We have the European Open Science Cloud, which is, it's not a cloud in a computer science meaning, okay? So you don't put anything into the EOSC. It's not a repository. It's simply a seamless virtual environment in which the machines, the algorithms, whatever, find your fair data. So you must make your data fair in order to be in the EOSC. But again, it's not per se. That's an important message. Open science is not per se. It's not our target. It's just a tool. It's a mean to have a sounder science, more responsive to societal needs. Okay, so it's not doing open science for the sake of doing open science. It's for doing good science and, you see, to unlock the full potential of research data to accelerate discoveries and innovation. I think this is the great lesson from COVID. What did we do during COVID? Did we publish in Nature, or did we share the sequences of the virus? We did share the data, not the publication on Nature. Okay? Also because the average publication time is 9 to 18 months. Can you imagine the first paper on COVID coming in, let's say, 12 months, to be generous? No, we were sharing data. And we already saw in another slide, open data save lives. So we need data, and the EOSC is there to accelerate discoveries and innovation. All the more so because if you look at the EOSC objective trees, you would see that the first objective on the left is open science practices and skill are rewarded and taught, becoming the new normal. I don't know the situation in Bulgaria. In Italy, we are far, far, far away from having open science as the new normal. But this is where this is where Europe is going, and the world, okay? So the risk, at least I talk for my country, the risk is to be left behind, you know? Because in the Netherlands, they have been working on open science since 2016. And the same is true for all the northern countries. But you see, the objective trees is not just about science. It's about industry and society. So again, it's to unlock the full potential of research data for science and society. And just to close, how do we get there? So what can we do in practice to, let's say, to get to open science? When I give my presentation, when I give my training, the normal reaction is, oh yes, everything goes beautiful, but we are still evaluated on the impact factor of the journal. Time is up, okay? Time is up. We have COARA. We have the Coalition for the Advancement of Research Assessment. Milena mentioned it at the beginning. So it's happening now. It's happening now because the European Commission is well aware that the normal reaction is, okay, everything is beautiful, but we are evaluated on the impact factor. And if you look at the commitment, QARA was launched in 2022, 3 years ago. And it's very practical. So once you sign QARA, then in 1 year, you are supposed to give an action plan. And in 5 years, you are supposed to give the Commission your first results. So it's not just blah, blah. You know, in Italy, we are used to blah, blah, blah. We have a lot of declarations. No, these are commitments. And I know it's small, but the third commitment, I can read it for you: abandon inappropriate use in research assessment of journal-based and publication-based metrics, in particular, inappropriate use of impact factor and H-index. This is a commitment. It's not a blah, blah. So, research institutions signing QARA, and they are more than 800 in Europe. They committed no longer to use the journal ranking, let's say, logic. It's not just the impact factor, you know? So how do we get there? By changing the rules. That's really important. If we don't change how researchers are evaluated, we will stick to the, you know, prestige, impact factor, and whatever. So we need to change the rules. But now we have the tool, because we have QARA, and a lot of people engaged. QARA is a bottom-up approach, so the institution signing should provide, you know, focus groups, working groups, asking researchers, how do you want to be evaluated? Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing, it's about you. It's about us. So be the agent of change. Okay, as we said, it's a process. So we should make open science too easy not to do. Okay, so that would be our task as people supporting research or as researcher, because as we said, it's a transition, it's a process. But if in a process, and by the way, this slide comes from Eva Mendes, so you know Eva. So if you don't have the vision, you generate confusion. If you don't have the skills, you generate anxiety. If you don't have the, let's say, incentives, you generate resistance. If you don't have the resources, you generate frustration. If you don't have an action plan, you generate false starts. Okay? So as it's a transition, we should be there with policies. We need action plans. We need policies. We need to know where to go and what are the targets. And of course, we need to monitor. Because Milena kindly mentioned that I was part of the group drafting the National Plan for Open Science in Italy. Never applied, never monitored. So it's just, you know, which is not the way to go. If you have a policy, then you should have to measure, you know, the advancement of the policy if you get there. And then you have to support at every level. Invest in human resources, invest in data stewards to make your data fair. Invest in infrastructures. For instance, in my university, they don't have a repository for the data. But you need also the infrastructure. And you need training. You need, you know, to create awareness about these topics. Because I don't know in Bulgaria, but in Italy, if you mention open science, they get open access. And if you say open access, they get just publishing. So depositing is unknown. And when they hear open access, they say, okay, is this predatory publishers, low quality journals and whatever, which is not, come on, we are in 2025. So make researchers aware, give a lot of training, starting again with early career researchers, because they are already there. They see their principal investigator as the obstacle because they say no, okay? So that was my last message, and this is the end of the presentation. But when I saw this paper, valid reasons not to participate in open science practices. I was very curious, because in the abstract you read, in the last year we have an increased interest in open science practices like pre-registration, open peer review, preprint, whatever. Despite the overwhelming amount of evidence highlighting the benefit of open science, some researchers remain reluctant. In this paper, I will outline valid reasons for researchers not to participate in open science practices. So I was very curious, and that's the paper. There are no valid reasons, okay? So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. And I hope it was not too long. Now questions, I think.
Yes. We can accommodate one or two questions or comments. Professor Macready, I think you should use the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be mainly a comment because you reminded me 40 years ago when I was in Chicago, a graduate student, we had one person who was visiting everyone, the young researchers, trying to explain to them that publishing is useless, in the sense that we are wasting our time, etc. Nobody believed him, and actually at some point I heard he was kicked out of not to be able to visit the university in Chicago. So this is what he meant, eventually, because the root of the problem is to change the evaluation. So the impact factors, it's all change the impact factor, define it, something like this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's another way to go.
Yeah, but you made your point. It's a long time, let's say, transformation, and that it's because it's a cultural change, and it depends on how you are evaluated. That's the crucial point. We need to change, but you are right. We might also change this impact factor. But as I told you, QARA is bottom up. So QARA is setting some working groups to ask you, the researchers, how do you want to be evaluated? Also because what may work in medicine doesn't work for an archaeologist, for instance. So it should be community-based, and you should be asked, how do you want to be evaluated, if not with the awful impact factor? But thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Anyone from Zoom? I don't see anything coming. Thank you once
Thank
again.
you. Thank you very much again for inviting me in this beautiful city.